Good afternoon. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Monday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is Monday, May 2nd, and we're glad to be here. We're waiting for spring and summer to come. It's happened once or twice so far, but maybe soon. Uh, Pleased to have my colleague and partner in community, Diana Hawkins and Dee Phillips are here. Uh, Good to see you both. My colleague, who is a writing colleague, Brenda Lau Gray, is here. And today we have a special guest, Melissa Nambangi, who is our guest to talk about a lot of important work that she's doing in community. And as always, these are unscripted conversations. We follow and go with the spirit. And so all of us are here with the intent of how do we share information, share expectations, share reservations, things we have concerns about in a way that enables us each to be the best person we can be and enables us each to be a part of this process of building community and supporting a shared vision for what it means to be a decent human being today in the world. Well, let me start by introducing Melissa. I'm reading from information about her and her organization. She's the executive director at Minnesota African Women's Association. It's called MAWA. And she's the founder of it. It's a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to promote the health and well-being of African immigrant and refugee women and their families. MAWA was founded in 2002 and serves over 100 African girls annually with college attendance, financial literacy for college, teen pregnancy prevention, civic participation, environmental justice programming, and she works in high schools and community sites throughout the Twin Cities metro area. They also provide services to adults for employment and health awareness programming. Melissa is also trained as an advocate in domestic violence prevention and sexual assault victim advocacy. She's a prevention trainer and a designer and presenter of workshops on overcoming barriers in working with African youth and adults and in the education, health, and social service professions. She's a former, she's a journalist and TV news anchor, originally from Cameroon. She's trained in designing culturally appropriate programs for Africans and dealing with even the taboo subjects such as family planning and other areas of health and education. She writes grants for her organization just has a stellar career of being of service to the community. Her teaching experience includes teaching English literature in Cameroon and African women's literature and women in world cultures at the University of Minnesota. So, Melissa, so good to see you again, and welcome back to Conversations with Al McFarlane. I believe we met and talked some years ago.
We met right at the beginning. Yes, you were helpful in launching us.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think we met at Lucille's Kitchen, there it was, or it was at the inside office?
Yes, in the inside office. Yeah.
We did a program from there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Great. Well, so good to see you again.
You too.
Let's start by just giving you a chance to give people an update. I know that, like many nonprofits, everybody's been impacted by COVID-19, and you've had to pivot like all the rest of us. And so give us an update, a status on the organization, what challenges you had and where you're heading now.
Okay. Well, it's great to be on here, and it's great to see Diana again. She has been so instrumental in our work for so many years. She was chair of our board for maybe 5-6 years even, and a board member at one time. So great to see you again. The organization, MAWA, Minnesota African Women's Association, we are kind of picking up again because back at the end of 2016, I went on sabbatical for 2 years. I was trying to do some studies in Cameroon and so on. So I took a sabbatical. And by the time I came back, a lot of things had changed. And it was practically like getting started again because the staff realized that it was better to go on hiatus while I was away. And so when I came back and started putting things together, COVID came knocking. And suddenly we were all frozen in spot because our work is so much to do with groups. I didn't know how I could tell anybody we are going to be doing groups in spite of this thing that we don't know how long will last around and all of that. So it kind of froze us in place for a few months. And then when the governor reopened certain services around the states, we realized that, okay, if we apply some of these CDC, MDH precautions in working with, we can start again. So we've been doing that. But while I was on hiatus, what was very important was that because my staff members are people who are community minded, they were doing a lot of volunteer work with the participants. So the participants knew that well, MAWA will be coming back. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that they associate MAWA with me. There are people who actually call me MAWA, and I'm like, oh, hey. So
Yeah.
they kept on that work. And when I came back, it was interesting to see just how the African women, especially, were excited that I was back. And then getting to pull the participants back with COVID, with the COVID experience and all. Um, a lot of our work, as you mentioned, is done in high schools. So today you start meeting with them, and a couple of weeks later, they're like, oops, we're back to distance learning. So finally, I told my staff, you know what? If you go and they're just two girls, work with them. If you go and they are up to 18, work with them. So we have had to reduce our sizes, of course, because we want to maintain safe social distance between the
Mhm.
participants. We have our budget has changed to include so much PPE that we have plexiglass barriers and all the cleaners and wipers and face masks that we have to take every day to group. It helps that some of the schools have also opened up and their after school programs are going, and the schools, they are wonderful. They really they express so much excitement that, oh, this group is back, oh, welcome back, and all of that. So we have been working with them along those lines, and we realize that it will take a little while to really get back on track for
Mhm.
them to be coming every week as they had been doing in the past. It helps that there are many of the ex participants who are in professions that they like, who have done their PhDs, are lawyers, and they always say how much the program was useful to them. So that gives the younger girls more enthusiasm for the program. But it still doesn't mean that today there won't be five of them and tomorrow there won't be 15 of them in the group. So we're thinking that maybe by September we can get everybody back on track where they come every day. We have had to let up a little on the women's employment program because what was so special about that program was the fact that we did not only help them with apply and look for work, but we also helped with the training because we realized that their biggest drawback was not having the fees to pay for certain training. And since our women love the healthcare field a lot, most of them want to at least start off with the certified nursing assistant program.
Mhm.
And in order to get that program going, we need to find funding first to support staff positions because the kind of funds we got for the scholarship was only for the scholarship.
Mhm.
But we were proud of the fact that 3 years that we got that scholarship from the Department of Economic and Economic from DEED.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, the 3 years we got that, we trained 217 women, African women,
Fantastic. Mhm.
as certified nursing assistants. And so that was something that they appreciated so much, because it's something like one of them did a very African cultural display of gratitude, which took me a bit by surprise because I've not seen that for a long time and I wasn't expecting it. But she just called one fine day, "Are you in the office?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she just comes, she said, "Okay, I'm coming." And she comes in with a large tray of food, traditional African food,
Mhm.
Cameroonian food, and she brought it. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this is wonderful." And then I said, this has been so great that we could help African women get this training. And she says, "No, I am grateful because you helped me. I mean, me in particular." Said, "Because for
Mhm.
about 4 years, I have been trying to raise the $1,000 for the training and I could not." Said,
Mm.
"So I am so happy." And that's when it occurred to me that, yeah, you might think $1,000 shouldn't take anybody a long time to raise. But when you think of her family size, her family obligations,
Mhm.
and what she does currently as a job, to be able to save 1,000 was such a challenge
Sure,
for this,
sure.
for this woman. So, so now we are doing the employment assistance and stuff like that, but not yet the scholarship part. We hope to get there in maybe a year or two, so that the women can get the training that they want. So that's
I'm
what we
I'm,
do.
I'm trying to organize the caption underneath, but I'm not being very successful. So you'll see it come and go till I get it down
Okay.
properly. But I'm working on it. It's so
Okay.
so good to hear the story and to get the update.
Yes.
What are you looking for? Just so that you put it out into the universe here.
Mhm.
What kind of support are you looking for? And
Well, for one thing, a lot of focus went to COVID and providing basic needs, and and people had to start jumping through hoops to be able to fit that new mission.
mhm,
And we, on the other hand, we don't want to do that, because we know it's good for some people to be able to fit the mission, but daily life still goes on. People's needs still go on. And the women and girls we focus on have this barrier of having to learn a new culture, learn new ways, learn stuff that they had not known before, or that they see and think, "Oh, this is very easy. I just need to do," and they don't know the repercussions. So we have to continue that work. And unfortunately, you see, for instance, one thing we couldn't get was the what they call it now, the COVID relief PPL. No,
mhm.
what was it?
PPP or
PPE
something?
or something. We could
Yeah.
never get that because
Mhm,
they were insisting on, "We want to see your 990 or your payroll. We want to see your
mhm,
payroll for this couple of years." And I'm like, "We were temporarily closed at that time.
mhm,
Oh, well, that's it. We can't give you."
mhm,
Then there was some American Rescue Plan stuff for after school programming we applied for. And it turns out, "Oh, you don't do this one thing, so we can't give you." So you
mhm,
have those kinds of barriers that just stop a very important program from
mhm,
getting any support, because there's
mhm,
one thing somebody requested that this
mhm,
organization doesn't have. So as a result, it has made a lot of difficulty. We don't ask any financial contribution from our participants. In
right.
fact, when we can pay for them, we will. So
Mhm,
we have to depend on funding. We
mhm,
know the traditional sources, which are the foundations, and we all know they give you 5,000 here, they give 10,000 here in order to get a year's budget. By the time you want to get 75% of the year's budget, you are in a new year
mhm,
because of the small amounts that are given. So we've
mhm,
started, learning of and trying to get into other sources of funding. So no matter how we look at it, funding is so essential for this program, because of our programming. There are girls who have visited colleges before they can go to college because of us,
mhm,
because their parents, one, maybe they don't understand the importance of doing college visits before they go, or two, are not educated in that way of thinking. They don't have what we call back home the Western education, or whatever we want to call
right,
it.
right, right.
So they don't have it to understand that this is an essential part for their daughter to be able to make up it. When your daughter even says, "Oh, I need to go on a college visit with my friends," the first thing they'll tell you is that they are working. And you really cannot blame them. They do the kind of work where if they were to ask for time off, they probably will not get it. But if they do get it, it means they don't get paid for that day.
Right.
And it becomes so difficult. So then we come along and say, hey, we have asked this and that and the other foundation, and they've given us money to pay for the lodging, to pay for the transport, to pay for the food. Now let your daughter come and
Mm.
give us the children. We
Mhm.
know we in the past we have done 3 college visits that the girls asked for. We used to take them
Mhm.
for college visits within the Twin Cities. But
Mhm.
then they expressed interest in colleges like Mankato because they know a lot of African students who go through Mankato, St. Cloud,
Mhm.
Duluth. There was one year we even went to Wisconsin because they
Mhm.
have heard of those colleges and they wanted to go there. But we
Mhm.
get all the funding for that.
Mhm.
So they come totally free. So a parent cannot even tell me she's not coming. Because if you say give even $10, it will be a question between am I gonna miss lunch in order for her to go on this trip? So we just say, don't give a penny. We will look for the money. So we
Mhm.
are constantly looking for funding because of what these girls tend to benefit if we can provide it to them at absolutely no cost. And which is why it is so important that our program usually has almost 100% participation every year
Mhm.
because it is voluntary. They don't pay, so they are not coming to make sure that, oh, let me use the money my parents paid for this program. No, they come because they love it, because they are taught to appreciate their African culture, but also to learn and appreciate the ways of the country in which they now live. And that's why stuff like civic engagement is one of the things we do because a lot of us come from countries where it doesn't matter if you vote.
Mhm.
Whoever the dude who says he's gonna be the boss is you may vote, you may not vote, he will be the boss. He will
Mhm.
be the president or whatever. So there is always that idea at the back of their heads. What's the point voting? It doesn't make any difference in my life. So we have to start making them understand how you can take part here to make things better for you. And don't look at the guy who comes and promises you this and that. Look for the one who answers one a need you have expressed about maybe your temporary protected status or what your kids can get in school, or look at the councils, look at the school board, look at things that we don't have in most of our African countries
Mhm.
and yet make such a difference in your life. They are the ones who are very concerned about the children getting into gangs and creating gangs and what have you,
Mhm.
and some especially a lot of fear after the George Floyd murder.
Mhm.
Now there's all this concern and the ways of solving it. They are not too sure. They think, well, anybody attacks me, I'll fight back. And we have to teach them, no, there are ways.
Mhm.
There are ways in which you get this problem fixed. Just follow. It might take a long time, but
Mhm.
one day you will succeed. If you get the right people in office and you have their ear, they will listen to you and know that, okay, this is how I can help my constituents
Mhm.
get what they need. So there's all these reasons why we do the work that we do, and we bring in some education that might not look it might not look like, is this really part of their mission? Yeah, they're promoting the health and well-being.
Mhm.
Well-being kind of opens the doors to almost anything you
Everything.
can think of.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, so that's those are the kinds of things we do. So of course, like with every nonprofit, is money, money, money. Even
Mhm.
those who get money in millions still ask for money. Then what more of those of us who get 10,000 here and 5,000 there? We should also be asking for
Sure.
support for these programs
Sure.
because they
Sure.
make a difference. And one last thing I want to point out about the girls program is
Mhm.
from the year where Northwest Hennepin County, not Northwest Hennepin, where the school district invited Africans to African CBOs to a meeting to discuss teen pregnancy issues.
Mhm.
That's the first time we learned how bad
Mhm.
it was in the schools. And knowing from the African point of view, we understood it's because it's one of the biggest taboo subjects. And we opted that we would start doing that because it was one of the highest reasons why most of the girls didn't go on to college. So from that year, we always made sure that at graduation we knew if any
Mhm.
of the girls were pregnant.
Mhm.
And from that year, all of our participants
Mhm.
were, graduated without getting interrupted by pregnancy.
Mhm.
And all of the participants who were seniors applied to and went on to college. So
Amazing.
that was something that our program actually succeeded in doing with these girls.
Can,
Amazing. This is
can
so
I
good there.
just
Go ahead,
can I
Dinah.
give a
Yeah.
praise in here to Mawa? I just, I think I need to throw this out there because, as Melissa said, I've been around them 20 years, chaired for a long time. But I just want you guys to know that this was a heck of a cultural experience for me because
Mhm.
through Mawa, I was able to meet Desmond Tutu and be able to call his daughter Naomi my
Mhm.
Mawa sister to this day. So that was a real big shock, culture shock for me. And
Mhm.
to be taken in by this group of ladies that I didn't know anything about, and for them to teach me their way, I really have to give them a praise. The fact that they're still doing it to this day, even after she took the sabbatical, she left and came back, and it's stronger than ever now. So I just want to get that praise out there to you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Well, let me talk to you about you, Melissa. Let me tell you the very first impression I had of you that I still have today, and that is that you are energetic and direct and clear and driven isn't the right word, but something close to that. You are focused and you are determined. And so you have this wonderful, positive, beautiful energy that engages people. Oh, that's the right word.
Yeah.
You are fearless. That's the word.
Thank
You
you.
you you come across as fearless and fierce because you believe so deeply and because you have the courage to act on your beliefs. So those are my impressions of you. So I hope that some of those fit you in some way. That's how
Thank you.
Al, the
Thank you.
journalist, sees you. So, but I wanted to get your story and talk
Yes.
about um, uh, your home country, Cameroon. I don't
Yes.
know if you helped me do this, but when the Fawn of Bafut was here, I interviewed him. You remember that? Were you here then when he was
Um,
here?
I wasn't there for that one, but I was there when the former prime ministers came to talk about the problem between the English speaking and the French speaking part of
Mm.
Cameroon. Yes.
So let's
Yes.
give people an education about Cameroon
Mhm.
in general,
Yes.
about where you're from and the part of the community that you are born into,
Okay.
and then we'll ask about your story personally. So talk
Okay.
about Cameroon.
Yes. Okay. So Cameroon is one of those countries that is suffering from their colonial history up till today. First, it was the Germans who were in Cameroon. And
Mhm.
then when they lost the war, the French and the British now divided up the country like they like. And for a long time, the British administered the southern Cameroons, as they called it at the time, with Nigeria. And then when the British were leaving, they insisted that the southern Cameroons, which as a result spoke English, was too small to um, to stand by itself. So they gave us the option, or whoever was there at the time, our parents, gave them the option of joining Nigeria or joining the French speaking Cameroons. After that, well, some discussion and we joined the French speaking Cameroons. Now, just the way the French administration is different from the English administration, that is how things are different in Cameroon. And so we basically just coexist. There is not too much of
Mhm.
shared commonalities between us. The things that we learned, our parents learned from the British and apply as administration are slightly different from
Mhm.
what the French speaking side does. Same as the laws that are used, common law in the English side is different from what the French do. The one typical example is being innocent till you're proven guilty, and the French side is being guilty until you are proven innocent.
Oh boy.
So we have those type of differences, and because of that, also there had been this understanding that it was going to be two separately governed states. It was going to be a federal state. But along the lines, the French are blamed for introducing these, some shenanigans, and suddenly it was a united country and English became the minorities. And the reason why I understand a lot of the difficulties that are faced in this country by minorities is because in my own country, I experience the life of a minority person. And this based on a foreign language.
Both,
Based on the
both,
fact that we
both
speak
languages are foreign.
English, we speak English.
Yeah, and French
And
is
the
a
other
foreign
side,
language as well.
yes, the other side speaks French.
Right.
And they have the higher numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They are like 75% French speaking and 25% English speaking. But then when it comes to natural resources, the part I come from is called the breadbasket of Cameroon. That's where the oil is, that's where the agricultural produce is, and that's where the development monies comes from. But we are treated as a minority. So I understand that, and that's it makes it easy for me to understand other minorities in other parts of the world. So as I went in 2016, because I can't just take a sabbatical and just sit and be relaxing on the beach for 2 years, I had a whole line of activities planned up because I was like, okay, the women had been asking me to get something going like MAWA back in Cameroon. So I was all set to do that with them, set up the organization and help them learn how to run it for like a year before coming back. So I was trying to do that, and I got that registered. As soon as it was registered, and I was like, okay. And to the credit of the Department of Education in the Southwest, where I had this group registered, they were willing to give us the building to start using before we try to get a building for the Cam Girl Academy, as I called it, in a few years. But as we're doing that, that's when the whole issue between the English speaking and the French speaking came to a head. And we got what we now think of as the French would call them secessionists, fighters, while others would call them freedom fighters. I don't know. This happens in history all the time. So that came up, and there were some very strict and disturbing things going on because immediately there was a loss of law and order. And suddenly kids could not go to school. And what I was trying to do, though it is a community-based organization, because the girls were going to be able to learn stuff there, it was seen as a school, so we couldn't even start. Then the government showed its power in cutting off internet access to the English-speaking part of the country. I didn't even know that could be done, because in my mind, it's like the internet just travels up there and we all get it.
Sure. No.
But suddenly I couldn't even communicate with Minnesota anymore. I couldn't communicate. We couldn't just communicate out of the little town and the city we were living in for about 3 months, until when I decided to go to the capital city, Yaoundé, as we boarded the bus from Boya, where I was. As soon as we got into the French-speaking part, which is Douala, you suddenly hear this beeping. I mean, everybody's phone is just going beep, 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 because the internet is on. And so people don't think much of that, but it's a thing that makes you very miserable to think that you can be in a country where you are
Shut down.
still, it's incredible. So you get to Yaoundé and you can do all this emailing and texting and text messages, WhatsApp and all of that, Facebook, what have you. And then as soon as you return to your part of the country, that's it. No more such access. So,
And you probably thought that that the whole country's internet was down, only to discover it was just you. It was
we
you
knew
knew
that
you're
it
being
was just
targeted.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, because there is a lot of disdain in the way the French-speaking deal with the English speaking. I
Mhm.
was impressed to see that a lot of them are learning English, but that's not because they want to deal with us. It's because they want to deal maybe with America or somewhere else. A
Mhm.
lot of them are learning English compared to when I was there,
Mhm.
when I was working as a TV news anchor. In fact, most of the ministers did not even concede that they could say a word in English. But now a lot of them are struggling to give little summaries of what they are thinking of in English.
Mhm.
So we knew, they told us, they made it clear it was punishment, that they are cutting off the Southwest and the Northwest province, or regions as they are now called, regions of Cameroon. So we did know that. We had journalists who were brave enough to ask the Minister of Communication, why are you doing this? And the excuse is, oh, this is not the only country that has done this before. It has been done in Russia, it has been done in, and they just call some really unpopular, tyrannical countries for having done this, and that's okay to do it here too. But the sad part is that the English part of the country is still paying for this up till today. They still cannot go out on Mondays. So now you don't even know who's doing what. There is this thing where a bunch of people will be killed there. And when you ask, the English fighters will be like, ah, it's the army. And the army will be like, who is those? So we're just there.
So
Uh,
is there actual armed conflict going
yes,
on
yes, there
now,
is. There
right
is.
now? For how
There
long?
is.
For how long?
It's been going on since 2000, around December of 2016.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate that you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
So sometimes the civilians are kidnapped
Mm-hmm.
and their families are, they demand ransom,
Mm-hmm.
or you get this call and they're like, you are not giving, how are you supporting the revolution?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just confusing. You don't know where to turn or whom to turn to. You don't know who the enemy is. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty rough situation.
A
So
lot of
now they don't go out on, every now and then you will just hear your family member will call and say, oh, there were gunshots last night
yeah.
by the house. We are not going out at all.
Right.
So it's
Right.
difficult because you don't know who the enemy is. This one will tell you it's the army. The army will tell you it's your people. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's
Is
pretty,
the besides the language,
yeah.
are there distinct tribal groups or ethnic groups? Are the English of one
Oh.
community the French speaking of another community, or is it all the same people?
All the same people, except that our languages are slightly different. Some people want to call them dialects, but we don't. I don't know how to call it. It's not they are not dialects.
Mm-hmm.
They are really well. There might be a couple that might have a few similar words, but we
Mm-hmm.
distinguish ourselves so well from
Mm-hmm.
our names. We can tell which area is. It's a pity that sometimes it's just a couple 100,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
and this other group might be just a couple 10,000 people, and
Mm-hmm.
but we know Cameroon, no, our population should be somewhere towards 20 million by now. But
Mm-hmm.
to imagine that we have over 250 different languages, which means we can have up to 200 Cameroonians standing here, and you might not have two who can speak the same language. So we resort to speaking English a lot. We do
Mm-hmm.
speak English, and it's English we use for education. And then, of course, the French side uses French for education. So,
Mm-hmm.
communication, education, and all of that, we end up using the English language. So, yeah, we are so the two English regions are the Southwest, which has, my group, I'm from the Southwest, and we have these languages that are completely different from each
Mm-hmm.
other and
Mm-hmm.
from the people of the Northwest. Even based on tribe, I think they are more the Tikar, if you know your African,
Chikar. Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
Tikar group, and we are more the Bantus. So
Okay.
our language tends to have some relations to the people of the languages of Congo,
Mm-hmm.
to some of the Swahili type things. So
Mm-hmm.
we have these differences, and that's why it is such a pity that there's all this fighting between French and English, because if one is resolved, the next one will be between.
Mm-hmm.
It will go on. It really needed to be handled appropriately. Groups have tried to get the British and the United Nations and all those who dumped the countries and took off back to their home without resolving certain issues. They've tried to get them involved to please resolve this issue because you created it, and they're like, oh, no,
Right.
we're out of there, we're done, we're out of there. So it's rather unfortunate that we're in this situation, because without that whole colonialism thing, we will not be here.
Their Cameroon was a source of a lot of Africans who were enslaved and who
Yes,
come to
yes.
this country. I don't know if you know my friend Callie Reiser. Do you know her, Callie Reiser?
No, but I know Lisa Aubrey. Do you know Lisa Aubrey?
I don't know Lisa, but
She does the Bimbia slave market. So she actually made us realize just how much, how many cousins we have all over the world.
Mhm.
The islands that the slave ships. No, so yeah, so I know, so I can give you Lisa's contact. You can give me Kelly's. We can get in touch with
I would
them.
like to, because
Yes.
Callie and her family had their DNA, and through that they connected with their family in Cameroon.
Oh,
And they
oh,
they went to Cameroon. They're from
oh,
St.
that's
Paul here.
wonderful.
They went to
Yes,
Cameroon, and they have a relationship with
yes,
them.
yes,
And I think she told me that just a lot of people have that connection with Cameroon. I
yes.
just finished reading a book called Barracoon. Barracoon is by the celebrated award-winning author Zora Neale Hurston,
Okay.
and it's the story of Cujo Lewis.
Okay.
And that was his American name, but his name was, I'll think of the actual name
It's
momentarily.
not Kojo, because Kojo is such a Ghanaian Togolese name. Kojo.
Well, this
Kojo.
is
Okay.
Cocuj, same thing though,
Oh, yeah,
same
yeah.
sounding. But
Mhm.
he was from, where's he from? From, do you remember, Brenda, where that ship from Dahomey,
Aha, Dahomey. Yes, yes.
the
Burkina
king
Faso, I think.
of
Are they Burkina
Dahomey
Faso?
was big in conquering
Yes,
neighboring
they were.
villages, towns,
They were
and
warriors.
capturing and selling or
Yes.
exporting people for slave trade, North Atlantic slave trade. And this gentleman, this brother, was on the last ship that
Oh,
left Africa to bring
oh.
human cargo
Mm-hmm.
for sale. And they
Mm-hmm.
sailed from the Bight of Benin, I think, from Dahomey,
Okay.
then Benin,
Okay.
to New Orleans, no, to Birmingham, to Mobile, Alabama. And by this time, it might have been like 1858, 59, or maybe 1860. It was
Okay.
just before the beginning of the war,
Yes.
Civil War.
Yes.
And the importation or the transatlantic slave trade was illegal. It had been for 30, 40 years, but they
Mm.
were paying attention to it
Okay.
because the war was about to happen, right? And
Yeah.
these two guys, two Americans, I think from New York or Maine or somewhere, had a bet, and they bet they could build a ship and go and purchase Africans and bring
Oh.
them here and enslave them. So
Mm.
just the thought of that
Mm.
people have that kind of arrogance to
Yes.
say,
Yes.
because I'm betting, I'm going
Mm.
to bet you I can
Mm.
go and buy 130 Africans and bring them here. And they ended up bringing a cargo and a
Mm.
ship built, and it was built just for this activity, for their bet. The bets, they sailed, and they had contact with the people that were in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, when he was interviewed by Zora Neale Hurston in the 30s, he might have been 67 years old. He was old man then, but he remembered being 19 when in about 1858, 1860, he was captured.
Oh.
That the Dahomean soldiers came
Mm.
to his town,
Mm-hmm.
and they executed a plan they used in all the towns where they forced people to pay tribute, and
Mm.
they would take them and their product and take them and sell them, right? So
Mm.
it's a gripping story. So I think
Mm.
we have to learn, all
Yes.
of us need to examine that history
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
both at home in
Mm-hmm.
Africa and
Mm-hmm.
here, so
Mm-hmm.
that we know in the case of real time
Yes.
uh, the story of enslavement. I
Yes.
show people from time to time, Melissa. There's a
Mm-hmm.
photograph on the wall behind me. There's a larger photograph, but
Okay.
in that photograph is a picture of my great great grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I'm in the picture. I think I'm gonna be 4 years old in the picture, and she
Mm.
was maybe 90 at the time, 94, 95. She died at the age of 99,
Oh.
but she was actually born in 1859 in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
She was property when she was born.
Hmm.
She was owned by other human beings.
Mm.
And just the thought of that, hurts me now. Even it's the
Yes.
truth
It
of the
really.
matter. It's what happened. But
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
to know that somebody that you were touching, who
Mm-hmm.
hugged you, who you talked to, when
Yes.
that person came into the world,
Mm-hmm.
that person was owned by another human
Someone.
being that could be bought and sold, brutalized,
Mm.
raped,
Mm.
uh, with no consequence,
Yeah.
right?
Incredible.
So I think that it's important that we begin to be very intentional in
Yes.
examining our shared
Yes.
histories, our shared resistance, number one, but
Yes.
also our shared failings. 'Cause we're
Yes.
responsible uh,
Definitely.
for everything, as well as the colonizers.
Yes.
And after the colonizers left, like you said, they
Mm-hmm.
left our
Mm-hmm.
countries they created
Mm-hmm.
uh, in a situation that kept us dependent on them,
On them.
and,
Totally.
and unable to resolve our differences among
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the same way they operate the plantations here.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made sure that number one, we could not speak to each other because we were divided up by
Mm-hmm.
languages.
Mm-hmm.
And they made
Yeah.
sure they broke up our families. We couldn't be
Yeah.
families together.
Mm-hmm.
And they made sure that we believed that they had the answer to everything, and that we had no answers, no mind, no thought, no feelings.
Yeah.
Certainly, that were of consequence to them.
Mm-hmm.
That was intentional. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. So I think it's wonderful whenever we can talk about it and think about it and just
Yes.
examine. But we also discover how resilient we are and how
Yes.
powerful we are, and how, despite that,
Yes. Yes.
uh, we have come from a history of
Mm-hmm.
excellence, and
Yes.
that we continue
Mm-hmm.
with that spirit of both resilience and
Mm-hmm.
excellence, and that you and I operate with a confidence
Yes.
that we know we have both a right and an obligation to build a world that
Mm.
reflects our dignity,
That
uh,
is so true.
our humanity, and our greatness. And we
Yes.
are committed to doing that. That's what I think.
Yes,
So,
I think it's very important because I've always thought of, in fact, I was working on putting together a group of African American and African women to deal with things because when things get bad, the women come
mhm,
together and they they can provide solutions. I was
sure.
already working on that, and one of the things I realized was that before we can make any decisions together, we must learn the history of each of us.
Hmm.
When I first came to this country, I met a lot of my fellow African Americans who were very shocked that I was so unconcerned with slavery. What they didn't understand is the history we learned back home does not emphasize slavery. The history is the books we used. Maybe now they are using a different set of books. We used books written by the British or books written by the French the other way. So we did not really know what harm slavery did to us. Then as I came here and started, first of all, you have this thing where um, we have certain opportunities and we are told stuff like, oh, don't go to this part of the city
Hmm.
for this, whatever reason. Nobody tells you that it's because there are people who look like you there and we don't think they are doing any, it takes you some time to realize that, wait a minute. So
Hmm.
I was advised not to come to where
Hmm.
people like me live.
Hmm.
And so you've already put that fear in me that if I go, so we need to learn. how these things are done, how, because nobody needs to call you a bad name to be able to suppress you.
Right.
You just need to plant some ideas in your head. And so, because of that, once you start paying attention that this is the game that is played, you become more aware. So, we need to learn because we get into all kinds of arguments with people who do not know themselves nor
Mm-hmm.
the other. And we are arguing on some abstract points that
Mm-hmm.
we have been fed as
Mm-hmm.
being the most important things that should rule your mind, and you tend to disregard your own truth or your own
Mm-hmm.
history. So
Mm-hmm.
before we can do anything together, even if we are planning a workshop or a conference or whatever where we should sit and work on certain issues, it must include an hour or 2 hours of history, so we understand why, as an African, I tend to think this is what I need to do to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Or as an African American, we think this is what we need to do. And most of all, to learn that we are not each other's enemy because we put too much effort fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
My sister told me how at work she had an African American staff person who insulted the African and said, "You lazy people, why are you even here? You need to go back to your." And I thought, oh my God, somebody should have told her that you are transmitting somebody else's message,
Mm-hmm.
a message that has been used against you. You turn
Mm-hmm.
around and use against the next person.
Exactly.
Instead, we should be surmounting that message and realizing it does not apply to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who was forcefully brought here,
Mm-hmm.
this is their home.
Mm-hmm.
And if they choose to have an Irish Day parade like the others do, or have an African Day parade, it is their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Just like every other person can talk about their ancestors coming from whichever country, and
Mm-hmm.
yet they are still American,
Mm-hmm.
that is the same thing for African Americans. This is their home, and they can talk of going to Kenya where they were born or where their ancestors came from. No, we have to
Yep.
grab our rights, hold on to them in order to make a change. But
But
we need
learning,
to
but
engage our.
learning that history is true for me as much as it is for an African American. I need to understand.
Yeah.
My kids need to understand. My
Yes.
grandkids need to
Yes.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
We're not responsible for it. We're not
No,
responsible for it happening,
but it
but we're
it happened.
responsible for understanding what it did,
Mm-hmm.
what it meant, how it affected us, how it affected other people.
And
That's
how we
what we
can
need.
stop it.
Exactly,
And how we
exactly.
can
And
stop
how
it.
we can stop this
Yes.
fighting and
Yes.
calling you names
Yes.
because I heard those names
Mm-hmm.
taught, not, I don't say them, but I heard them said. Um, that's how we need to come together. We all need to learn this. It doesn't matter what color you are. We
Yeah.
all need to learn
Yeah.
this, and we all need to understand
Yeah.
that while we're not responsible
Mm-hmm.
for what happened, we're
Mm-hmm.
responsible for remembering.
Yes. And it's based on that. I think we're almost out of time, but it's based on that. That's why I work so hard with the African girls and the women, because I always tell them that the way they are seen is the way I am seen. We tend to believe a lot in the fact that, oh, she's a journalist, so she is this and that. You think that matters. It matters only to maybe Cameroonians or the people who know me. People who are against my race, it doesn't matter to them at all.
Mm-hmm.
What they
Right.
see in me is the same thing they see in any other black person who maybe broke something somewhere. If they can call that one a criminal, they will turn right around and call me a criminal too. So
Mm-hmm.
what I see out there, how I see another black person, is the way I am being seen if I'm looking at it negatively. So I work a lot with the girls, and I always tell them, your success is actually my success,
Mm-hmm.
because you are showing that we are not the stupid people they think we are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Brenda, go ahead.
I just wanted to tell Melissa I have a dear friend in Boya.
but yeah,
Yes, and she just started a foundation, the
oh,
Cecilia Chakunte. I hope I said that
Yeah, you
right.
said it right.
I never could do her middle name, but
Okay.
Tadford. They're the Tadfords,
Okay.
and very well known in Boya. She just came back about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the foundation did well. It's
Oh,
for disabilities, and
okay.
so she's raising funding
Mm-hmm.
for prosthesis and
Mm,
walkers and
okay.
wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a launch where I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then she went to Boya and had a launch there.
Yeah,
And Cameroon is interesting, a beautiful country.
it
I
is.
guess Boya is right underneath the mountain,
Yes,
Mount
yes.
Cameroon.
Right at
Yeah,
the foot. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, very interesting, and kudos to the work that you're doing, Melissa.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I hope we begin to put that history in the
Yeah.
schools. I'm a
Oh, yes.
retired educator,
Okay.
and my kids could never find different countries in Africa. It was never taught.
Yes.
So we started doing it, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Melissa, I have, and Dee, I have tickets to this Friday night for the Guthrie Theater presentation of A Raisin in the Sun.
Oh,
And Melissa, if you and some of the women in your group
okay.
want to carry your children, just give me a call
Oh,
when we're
I will
done.
definitely
I'd be
do.
glad to provide these tickets to you. Dee, if you know anybody in the community that would like tickets, just let me
Okay.
know. We'd
All
love
right then. I'll
to have
ask the
you.
women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Boy,
great.
Lorraine Hansberry has lasted for decades.
Yes. Yes.
We
Timeless.
did the play in high school.
Timeless.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Dee, same thing. If you have people that you want to give tickets to, just let me know and I'll make them available. Well, this has been a great conversation, a great beginning, Melissa, because this is not the end of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I threw out a few things that I wanted you to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
but the time just went that quickly, right? So the hour is up. So we're gonna have to have
Yes.
you come back real
Okay.
soon.
All
But
right.
I still want to hear Melissa's story. The story.
Oh,
So I'd like to know who
yes.
your parents are, and
Ah,
and
yes.
who your ancestors were, and
Yes.
what are all the ideas, the legacy,
Okay.
the spirit
Okay.
that pours into making
Yes.
Melissa
Yes.
the leader that she is in community and in the world, right?
Yes.
And I'd love
Beautiful
to,
spirit.
and I know I sense the answer, but I'd love to hear you talk about your vision of
Yes.
the world that you are building
Mm-hmm.
and the world that you believe
Mm-hmm.
is imminently available to us if we simply
Yes.
work and trust ourselves
Yes.
and collaborate.
I
So
think one short thing I can tell you that can show why I'm the way I am is that my father was the first feminist I knew.
the first
My
what?
father, the
Uh,
first feminist I
uh-huh.
knew.
Okay.
Yes,
Great.
so
Wow.
it is from my father.
Uh-huh.
It is from
Excellent.
my father. And his
Wonderful.
mantra was, I will prove that girls can be better than boys.
There you
It
go.
shocked everybody, but he said that and he did it.
Wow.
And you are the proof.
Now you see why I
Yes,
love
I'm
this
always
woman. I
honest.
learned so much from her.
That is super. That's
Yes,
so
so it was
super.
very powerful to have a father who thought like that. While
Most
his friends were
definitely.
insisting on getting the girls ready for marriage, he was
Mhm.
insisting on getting us ready for professions. It was,
Mhm.
you are gonna be a lawyer, you are gonna be a doctor, you know. And when I chose to become a journalist, and he saw me there on the screen, that's the first time he forgave me because he really wanted a lawyer. But there I was on the screen, and everybody, and I happened to be one of the first female news anchors, and he became so proud of that.
Of course.
Then
Oh,
my
wow.
sister went into
That's
the law
so
profession
cool.
and saved us all from.
That's
So yes, my
wonderful.
father. My father is
Amazing.
responsible.
Well, I want to get that story in detail, so we'll have you come
Okay,
back real soon.
sure,
And you
sure.
know what? And think about this, Melissa, as there are other people that you work with, or the
Mhm,
organizations that you
mhm,
partner with,
mhm.
bring them,
Okay,
and we'll
okay,
have
okay.
just expand this conversation.
Sounds good. I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Good to see
thank
you again, my friend.
You
All
too.
right.
Thank you all.
We'll see
Bye.
you all. Take
Yes.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, good program. Thank you. The program's over now. So thanks, Melissa. Good job.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Brenda, talk to you later.
All right, take care. Have a good one.
You should receive those packages tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I put a bundle. They
appreciate
said Wednesday delivery.
Thank you.
Or so Wednesday,
I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Okay, all right. Take
All
care.
right, take care.
Bye-bye.